Welcome to the Personal Development Mastery Podcast. Stand out, don't fit in. Hello everyone. I'm delighted today to be speaking with Chris Branch, who is an osteopath by profession, a successful business owner, a charismatic public speaker, a family man, a philosopher, a keen meditator, and very passionate about personal development. Chris Branch, welcome to the show, and it's a real pleasure to speak with you for the second time for the podcast.
Yeah, thank you, Aggie. Thank you for having me back. I loved chatting to you last time. I think you have a way of bringing out interesting conversation in people, so it's a pleasure to be back here again.
Thank you very much. And the big difference between previous time and now is that we are not in the same room because of the recent situation with the isolation and all that. So I think, and that's something I want to speak with you in a little while, there is always a positive in the negative, no matter what happens. Chris, I wanted to ask just for a brief introduction for people that may not know who you are. I just wanted you to tell us maybe one key defining moment in your journey, maybe in terms of personal development. I already said that you are an osteopath, but I won't really script what you say, but if you just give us a key defining moment that has led you to where you are at the moment, that would be great.
It's an interesting question. So the defining moment, I think some people have them, don't they? Some people have a thing. And I've really racked my brains because I've been quite clear on my purpose in life since about the age of 13. But I can't tell you why that is. So when I was 13 years old, I knew that I wanted to be an osteopath. But going back before that in life, I knew that I was fascinated by how the human body works. I was fascinated by what it means to be healthy. And literally that goes as far back as I can remember. So when I was 4, I was interested in looking at the human body and children's body atlases and things. So I've never had a specific moment in time where I felt like I want to help people get out of pain, but as far back as I can remember, I've been interested in how the body works. I've also known that I want to work with my hands, and that led me to osteopathy. But it's all through my teens and beyond, and certainly now I'm in my career. I've also been interested in what it means to live a good life and live an intentional life. So I've always had a keen interest in reading philosophy and personal development. So that's where our paths crossed. But it's an ongoing project. I think it's a lifelong project. Just trying to pick apart one's life and try and subtly improve things as you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed. It's as you said, it's lifelong, and it never ends. That journey of self-discovery and personal development is forever. There is no point that you will reach and say, no, I'm all right now. I've reached the peak, I've reached the top, and now there's nothing more for me to learn or to grow into. There's always a next level and another one, always.
Always another level, which is good. I'm just sharing this onto
yeah, sure.
There we go. All set. Think on.
Since you mentioned the term intentional life, I will start by asking you exactly about this. What do you mean by intentional life, and why is it important for people to live an intentional life?
So I think I like reading all various types of philosophy. One I've landed on recently is Stoicism, and the Stoics were a group of philosophers that was started about 2,500 years ago. And one of the reasons I like reading Stoicism is that it makes me realize that no problems are new, no problems are unique. The way we think about things and approach problems has actually been fairly similar for the last 2,500 years and probably beyond that. And the idea of living an intentional life is nothing new. So philosophers have been trying to break down their lives, break down the lives of people, and understand why we do things and how we can optimize our life, like I say, for 2,500 years and probably beyond. But I think it's never been more important to live an intentional life and analyze why you do things. It's never been more important than today, because there are so many things dragging on our attention. And we've got to a strange point in history where computer algorithms are more intelligent than the human brain. They can hack the primal part of our brain, the primitive part, and computer algorithms can keep us sucked into social media, can keep us scrolling mindlessly. The marketing that we are just bombarded with every day through Instagram ads, Facebook ads, even things that we don't even realize is marketing. It's just influencing us to make us do things and buy things and want things. And it's taking our attention away from things that may not truly be relevant to the true you. So the way I'd think about intentional living is it's just a way of reflecting on your own life. It's a way of reflecting how you spend your time, your money, but more importantly, your attention. And just questioning, is it true to you? Are you living your purpose? Are you living to your values? And then you can start to ask quite deep questions about morality and ethics, and ask, are your values good values? Can you improve on them? And as you just said, it's a never-ending project. I'm not there yet, but I do think that I'm better than I was a year ago. I think I am slowly chipping away at things, and it's certainly a fun project. I make mistakes and I get things wrong, but try and learn from them and not make that same mistake twice. Or if I do make the same mistake, I don't make it quite so badly the next time. And it's a fun project getting through this thing that we call life.
Most certainly. And what you said, I made a couple of notes. You said that you are better than where you were a year ago, and that reminded me of the fact that that's the whole point, isn't it? The constant improvement of ourselves, and especially in this era that we live in, that there is so much tendency to compare ourselves to other people and think that maybe we're not as good as they are, which is very easy now with the social media. You can see what everyone is doing. So instead of that, which really you can't really compare, because different people are in different stages in their journey. Instead of that, we should only compare to who we were yesterday, a month ago, and a year ago. And if we are making progress, that should be our aim. If we're stable and we're not moving upwards, actually we're never stable. We either go up or we go down. Everything in nature is like that. Nothing stays still.
Mm-hmm. Jordan Peterson has a quote from his book 12 Rules for Life, that you should never compare yourself to others, only compare yourself to who you were yesterday. And I really like it because it's quite an empowering quote. Sometimes if you find yourself comparing yourself to another person, another entity, it's quite disempowering. You can suddenly start to notice flaws in yourself and feel that you're not good enough. Whereas if you're comparing yourself to who you were yesterday, the next question from that is, what is one thing I can do today to be a little bit better than yesterday? And suddenly it shifts your focus. It's not a disempowering focus on what's wrong with me. It's an empowering focus on what's one small thing I can do to improve that thing that I'm worried about. So I follow many people that I find inspiring, and wish I could be doing some things like them. But rather than beat myself up and realize that I'm not good enough, I'm not as good as that, it's a question of, that trait, that individual trait from someone else is something I admire. What's one thing I could do today to get a little bit closer to being like that tomorrow? and it breaks it down into smaller chunks and makes me take ownership so that I can take that little step forwards.
Absolutely, agree with you. And you mentioned Stoic philosophy, Stoicism earlier on, and that's something that I would like to have a quick chat with you about. It's for me the book that has made the biggest impact in terms of Stoic philosophy is The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday, which now I'm rereading it for the second time. Last year I was reading one page a day, as the book is meant to go 366 pages, and I was doing it as part of my morning routine, reading the Daily Stoic quote. And this year I'm redoing it for the second time, and I have the feeling that I'm going to be doing it for a very long time, because these philosophies really transcend time. As you said, it's 2,500 years ago, and you read them and they are at the same level as they were then. There are some small differences, but you can see exactly that they are relevant to today's time as they ever have been.
The framework of the problems that philosophers and just the people living their daily lives, the framework of the problems they were dealing with 2,500 years ago is exactly the same as the framework of the problems we're dealing with today. And the anxieties attached to problems were exactly the same back then. The only difference is the medium in which they might be played out. So today it's digitally and in social media, and back then it was in marketplaces and between neighbors of communities, but they're the same. And I like that, because we all have our own first person view of the world. We're all looking out from our own ego and our own eyes and our own senses. So when something happens to us, a problem happens to us, we think, why is it happening to us? And why me? And when you read things from literally thousands of years ago, and they were dealing with the same things and having the same anxieties attached to them, it makes you feel less unique in a good way. It makes you realize many people in the history of time have dealt with the same problem. They've got through it. I will get through it. And it makes the problem seem a little bit smaller, knowing that millions and millions of people have dealt with the same thing in the past.
Yeah. Apart from that thing, is there any other aspect of Stoic philosophy that really resonates with you?
So I see Stoic philosophy as a practice. It's almost in the same way that I see fitness. Exercise is a practice for fitness and health. So exercise. The more you exercise, the fitter you get. The more, say you want to get stronger, you start lifting weights, and the more you lift weights, the stronger you get. And Stoicism for me is the practice of dealing with problems. It's a way of reframing things in your mind consciously. I should also say, this will probably come up in conversation, that I like Stoic philosophy as a conscious way of reframing problems. And then I find it works perfectly when coupled with meditation, which is a way of actually not trying to change anything, but just observing the present moment, the experience of the present moment. So I find Stoicism and meditation work quite well together. But the Stoicism is, like I say, each time I'm faced with a problem, no matter how big or how small, it's almost like I call it the bicep curl of philosophy, because you can read Stoicism, and it's very important to understand it from a conceptual level. But you only really get to test yourself when life gets hard. So each new problem that life throws at us, that's the bicep curl. That's you lifting the weights in the gym. And you get to test how well you're going to cope with it. How well do you get to apply your philosophy when life is at its hardest? And that's the thing that I would say is different to me compared to a year ago. So it's when life throws curveballs, and we're in probably the biggest curveball that anyone alive has really experienced. Certainly on a global scale. When life throws you a curveball, how are you going to cope with it? And that's the thing, that by dealing with problems and trying to frame them with Stoic philosophy, I've just got better at it over time, and I think that's something that many people who read this style of philosophy notice, that they get better at dealing with problems in their mind, and they get quicker at it.
Mm-hmm. And it's exactly what you just said right now, the last thing, dealing with problems in their mind, because that is really where our problems are coming from. And maybe it's difficult for some people to grasp that the problems are not out there. They're all in here. If you remove this, there are no problems. So it's fascinating. Can I touch upon meditation, which you just mentioned as well? I remember when we had our conversation last year, you were a keen meditator. I can only imagine that you've went... you've done even more, you've gone to a different level by now.
Yeah, it's something that I just consider, I call it my keystone habit. It glues everything together. It certainly keeps me calm in a busy life. What I've found with meditation, I've been meditating for over 5 years now, and I find that there are jumps every now and then. So I found my first jump after about 6 months. Or actually, that's a lie. I found my first jump after about 10 days. I was like, oh, I feel calmer. And then nothing really happened, so it plateaued for a while, and then another big jump after about 6 months, and then probably another one after about 2 years. So sometimes the gaps between the level of meditation I'm working on, they can be quite long. So I just say to people, trust the process. Just consider this a long project. I have had a big jump this year where I'm starting to explore the concept of non-dualism. So trying to break down the so-called illusion of self, where I'm just trying to pay attention to the space that is consciousness, and then notice consciousness and then the contents of it, and realize that even our idea of us being an I, being a self, is just a content in consciousness, and that's been quite interesting. But I definitely wouldn't recommend starting at that point. I think a good place to start is by using an app like Calm or Headspace, just paying attention to thoughts and feelings and watch them come and go, and notice that your mind wanders and then bring it back. That's the skill of attention, and noticing that your mind has wandered and bringing it back is the first step. And that's probably 2 years of work right there. So I've been working at this a while, and I know that I've still got a long way to go, but it's definitely still something that I consider to be very important in everything that I do.
Mm-hmm. Do you still use the apps when you meditate?
So I have shifted to using an app called Waking Up by Sam Harris.
Sam Harris.
Yeah. So I've been a follower of Sam Harris for a long time. And funnily enough, I was using Headspace when I discovered Sam Harris's podcast. So at the time, his podcast was called Waking Up. It's now called Making Sense. And I was listening to lots of his podcasts about meditation. Meanwhile, I was using Headspace. And during one of my Headspace meditations, I was meditating and paying attention to thoughts and feelings. And I had this strong question come out of nowhere saying, hang on a minute, who is the observer? So I could observe my senses. So I could observe sounds, I could observe feelings, the weight of my body in the chair. I could feel hot and cold and tingling. I could observe thoughts come and go and daydream. And sometimes the thoughts would conflict with each other, or they'd just come out of nowhere. And I'd got better at just the process of paying attention. And then, like I say, out of nowhere, it's almost like this voice in my head just went, hang on a minute, who is observing? And that question came at the time where I'd discovered the Sam Harris podcast. And then he was in the process of developing his app. And as soon as he brought it out, I switched, because this is what he focuses on, this concept of non-dualism, where he helps give you little techniques to turn your attention back on itself, to start looking for the observer. And the more you look for the observer, the more it just breaks down, and you're left with this open space of consciousness. It's quite interesting. But I recommend meditation to a lot of people, but I don't necessarily recommend they start with that. Builds the skill of attention with something like Headspace, and then once you've got good at paying attention to thoughts and feelings, and you get quicker at noticing your mind wandering, because it never stops, but you do get quicker at bringing it back, then if you're interested in this side of things, because again, not everyone's interested, but if you are, then I've found waking up to be really, really cool.
Do you ever meditate with no device, no app, just closing your eyes and going?
Yeah, of course. Meditation can be done with eyes open, and can be done when you're walking, and it can be done anywhere. So I try and do it a lot, actually, just little moments through my day, just try to be extra mindful. Sometimes I'll sit for 10 or 20 minutes just with no device, absolutely. I'm always practice what they call mindfulness, though. So there are many styles of meditation. What I'm practicing is always paying attention to thoughts, feelings, and now I'm trying to notice this space of consciousness. So sometimes I'll do it without any devices. And then the other thing I've discovered recently is Brain FM, which is an app, you may know about it, an app that uses music frequencies to help change your brain frequencies. And I've actually been really impressed with that as well. So sometimes I use just some music that plays at a certain frequency to help focus the mind. So that's been quite helpful.
There are two reasons why I'm asking you about all these things. One is because I think that meditation is certainly one of the best ways to calm our mind down, especially during this unprecedented and challenging period that we're living, and because there is so much fear, unfortunately, that is happening, it's much easier to deal with anything when you start from a place of calmness in your mind, and meditation is one of the best tools that I've known. That's why I'm carrying on this conversation. But there is one more reason, and that is because I've tried Headspace, Calm, and at some point I gave Waking Up a go because it had a couple of free sessions in the beginning. But you mentioned about that tipping point. How did you call it? When you go to another level.
Yeah, I can't remember what I said. You can level up, but you never know when that's going to come, though. So I just say, trust the process. Just turn up every day, and suddenly, without any real apparent reason, you'll think, "Oh, I've just got something. Something made more sense to me." And I've probably had a handful of those big jumps in the last 5 years, but they are often quite spread out. So I just say to people, trust the process.
For me, the one thing that has helped with improving my meditation is when I combine it with breathwork. So something like the Wim Hof breathing, which I do every day. During these periods of time when I exhale and there is no air in my lungs and it just counts, then I can experience a deeper stillness than if I just put an app and I'm breathing and I'm trying to be mindful of my breathing. So
the way I find the same. So I use Wim Hof breathing, and recently I've found Soma breathwork, which I say is Wim Hof on steroids. It's
really?
It's really good. So it's SOMA breathwork, and they've got a few YouTube videos that they're just audio. So I just headphones on. I normally do them laying down. What it does is it combines breathwork that's very similar to Wim Hof, but it uses the music like on Brain FM. So the music waves are affecting your brain waves while you're doing this breathwork, and it's guided with beats, and so you're breathing to a beat and a rhythm, and then when you breathe out and you're holding your breath on empty lungs, the music kind of gets all spaced out, and it's really good. So you end up in a really cool place. But the reason I bring that up is in meditation they talk about there being altered states and altered traits. So an altered state might be the blissfulness you feel when you're meditating, and over the years I've had ridiculous altered states, really quite incredible moments in time where during a meditation I just feel the joy of gratitude for being alive, all sorts of strange and wonderful, weird feelings. But really, they are just altered states in the moment that don't really matter in the rest of your life. They're lovely, But the main reason I'm doing meditation is to alter my traits in day-to-day life. What I find is that if I can practice meditating in a way that doesn't need anything to get me into a nice place, then it transfers more into day-to-day life. So the example I always use is something that most people are nervous of is public speaking. So imagine you're just about to give a talk to 100 people. If the meditation practice you've been doing relies on you doing certain things like breath work, you're not going to be standing in front of those 100 people doing these kind of big, strong breaths to get you into a place where you're happy. Whereas if the meditation practice you've been doing is just paying attention to thoughts, paying attention to feelings, no matter whether they're nice, good or bad thoughts, you can pay attention to anxiety in just the same way that you can pay attention to pleasure. So then when you are about to give this talk to 100 people, you can pay attention to your clammy palms and your racing heart and your butterflies in your tummy, and you can pay attention to the thoughts of not having practiced enough, not being good enough, and thinking that everyone's going to think you're an idiot. And you can pay attention to those thoughts, but you can step outside those thoughts and just observe them. And you don't need anything to do that. You don't need to do the breath work or anything. You've practiced many times, so practicing again is fine. So I find that it alters my traits in day-to-day life, particularly when life is tough and you're feeling anxiety. So using that public speaking example, you don't need to do anything. You can just give your talk. You can be preparing for your talk and practice mindfulness. So I do both as well. By the way, I still like the breath work, but I just recognize that the breath work takes me to a nicer altered state, but I find that to alter my traits in day-to-day life and to deal with anxiety better, I need to practice with nothing.
And is it a specific time of the day that you practice meditation, or it varies?
Yeah, so in an ideal world, it would be first thing, but I've got a 2 and a 4-year-old, so I don't have a routine. I'd love to have this lovely morning routine where I journal and meditate and do some breath work and do some yoga, but that would be a lie. I wake up into a world of chaos every day, so I get it done when I can.
Okay, all right, okay, fair enough. Do you want to talk, since we mentioned it, and I think it's inevitable, we'll have to talk about it inevitably, what's going on in the world today and the anxiety it causes, and I mean with the coronavirus epidemic. And I know that you are a business owner, that you had to close your business, as many people have. So that certainly brings a higher level of stress, anxiety, fear, uncertainty about the future. Tell me, well, we already discussed about some things, but from your point of view, how do you cope with this?
So at first I coped badly, and honestly, I went into quite a bit of a spin a couple of weeks ago.
It's important to mention that, because it doesn't mean that you look very composed and calm, and I know you are, but that doesn't mean that someone like you, or a person that is very composed, doesn't have moments that they really spin out of control. So I think it's important to acknowledge that and share it with people, as far as I can.
And earlier when I was saying, talking about Stoicism and this being a lifelong project, and I think one of the things I've got better at is getting over the initial panic faster. But so having said that, with this particular episode, this coronavirus, there was initial panic, and for me it lasted about 2 weeks. So I think all the practice I've been doing with meditation and Stoicism helped bring me out of it, and were it not for that, I'd probably still be in it. But 2 weeks, it took me 2 weeks to get out that panic this time around. So it was I went quite downhill, lots of anxiety, and what I realized then is I really needed to double down on the practices that we've been speaking about. So really tried to focus more into my meditation, and it was actually during a walk to work. I was walking. I live on a hill, and I was walking down the hill, and I'd done my meditation that morning, and I was walking to work, but I still had a frown on my face. I still had a tense jaw. I still had hunched shoulders, and all of the fight flight responses were still working quite strongly in my body. And I had this little realization of walking often does this for me. I have realizations, and my realization was that through the 2 weeks of having the news about the virus and everything being ramped up, having the realization that I was probably going to have to close the clinic and what that was going to mean financially, everything I'd been trying to do I'd had a goal of trying to feel better. So I felt bad because I felt bad worrying about the health. I felt bad having all the conversations with my patients and their worries. They're worries for their loved ones if they got the virus and what it meant for their loved ones. I had worries financially. So that all made me feel bad. And then everything I'd been doing, so every time I went to the gym, for example, or went for a run, I was thinking, oh, this will make me feel better. Every time I did a meditation, I was thinking, oh, this will make me feel better. And then it was walking down the road that morning, I had the realization I was going at it the wrong way. I shouldn't be trying to change anything. I'm allowed to feel bad, and the world is in a funny place right now. What if I just try and accept feeling bad? Don't change anything. Just take each day as it comes, and if you feel bad, that's okay. And that sudden little shift in mindset changed everything. So I actually suddenly did feel better by accepting the feeling bad. I felt that little bit better, and accepting whatever is going to come our way for the business, and accepting the fact that income is going to go to zero. I suddenly felt better. So that word would be described as equanimity. So being equanimous of the situation, just whatever it is, whether it's good or bad, it's okay. Don't try to change anything, just be. That since that moment, I have felt better. So it took me a while to get there, but that's the way I'm trying to approach things now. Just have equanimity in the situation. It's not, none of us are. Well, everyone's struggling in their own way, but that struggle is okay, and just take it as it comes.
It's very profound what you said about accepting that it's okay to feel stressed or anxious. Unfortunately, many people are not very good at coping with negative emotions. So in terms of, understanding them, acknowledging them, and doing something to see what the lesson is behind them. Because Tony Robbins says that a negative emotion is a signal, it's a call to action, to do something. It's never just something on its own, so it urges you to do something. But as you know, many people try to just suppress that emotion because it is uncomfortable. So either by, overeating or drinking or watching TV, something to take them away from that emotion. So it's accepting in what you said. It's very profound. And I will also make a comment about equanimity, which, as you know, English is not my first language, but I'm a very keen student of the English language because I find it fascinating, and that comes from a Greek who has a heritage of the language behind me. But I looked equanimity up, even though I had an idea of what it meant, but I had to look it up on the dictionary, and I'm just going to share that because I loved it. It said calmness and composure, especially in a difficult situation, and that's exactly this, isn't it?
Yeah. One one practice that I've done for this is to do quite long meditations, say minimum 45 minutes, and sit completely still. And what you'll find after about 20 minutes of sitting completely still is that it gets really uncomfortable. But the thing about sitting completely still is you're not actually injuring yourself. So you can sit in cross-legged on the floor, or just sit. I mean, to be honest, even in a chair, if you sit dead still for 40 minutes plus, it will get uncomfortable. And try and remain completely motionless other than your breath. And when you start to feel uncomfortable, you'll notice the pain levels raise and raise and raise. And as pain increases, your body will want to try and move away from it. So as you just said, with negative emotions, I would say the same about pain, that pain is more there to change our behavior than it is to actually tell us about tissue damage. Pain is our body's way of changing how we move or changing the actions we take. So when you're sitting still, pain is saying, you need to move now. I need to wriggle. I need to take the pressure off that joint. And you just observe that, but stay there and accept the pain, accept that you're not going to move. And that's kind of a nice way to practice equanimity. And then like anything, the more you practice it, the better you get. So I'm definitely not brilliant at it, hence why it took me 2 weeks to figure this out this time. But I had the realization though, and since having that realization that everything that's going on in the world right now, it is tough. It's affecting us all in weird ways, health and medically and financially. And it's okay to feel worried about it. So as the quicker you can accept that it's okay to feel worried, then the less that will actually impact you.
Absolutely. For me, the financial worry was not there, and for a very strange reason. It's not like I have big stashes of cash in the bank that I can use. Is that I am aware that this financial problem that I have, that you have, it's pretty much everyone in the world is going to have. So that somehow gives me some reassurance, or maybe you want to call it faith. I don't know if it is naive for me to think like that, but that's how I feel, and I'm just being honest with you and everyone listening, that somehow I don't think that the whole world will go under the level of poverty because of the pandemic. I think something is going to happen on a global scale. So obviously that's just something that I feel. I mean, I don't have any evidence to back it up, but it's just something that has put me at ease from the beginning. That so I haven't had that kind of worry. So faith helps very much, as you know, in all sorts of things. That things will happen for the better.
One of the things that Stoicism teaches us is actually to play little thought experiments and to realize that things could always be much worse. And once you realize how much worse the situation could be, it makes you realize your current situation is actually all right. One little thought experiment would be, imagine putting yourself into a much worse situation, much worse situation. Let your imagination run wild, and then ask yourself, how much would you pay in that moment to get back to where you are right now? and I like that as a fun thought experiment, where when you're beating yourself up and you feel bad for whatever reason, either an internal problem or something that's happened externally, just take yourself out, play this imagination game, and put yourself into somewhere much worse, and realize, actually, you'd pay quite a lot of money to be dealing with this problem that you're dealing with right now. This problem would feel like nothing compared to imagination world. And it's just a fun thought experiment that, again, instantly makes you feel better.
Certainly. And that phrase that your nightmare is someone else's dream. So someone else would love to be where you are, and we think that, oh, I'm really bad. For someone else, that would be heaven to be in our shoes. So maybe we should talk about gratitude as well. I wasn't planning to, but tell me what's your thoughts on that then, is the importance of gratitude.
Yeah, not only is it something I've practiced in the past, but the evidence is very, very clear on it. Gratitude, writing things of gratitude, has been researched in all sorts of interesting places in terms of overcoming depression, overcoming chronic pain. There are some quite interesting facets with how powerful it can be. I must admit, recently, you bringing it up here has reminded me I've been less consistent with it. So maybe hopefully this conversation will remind me to get my journal back out. I think you can't do everything all the time, can you, when it comes to these personal development practices? The way I like to see it is my baseline slowly shifts. So I don't do all the things all the time, but every time I drop out of one practice, I've raised my baseline a little bit. So right now I can't say I'm practicing gratitude all the time in a written form. I try and practice it in my mind, but again, the evidence is quite clear that to get the best benefits from it, you need to be writing it down. And that's not something I've been doing recently, but I'll get back to it. This conversation is motivating.
That's great. Yeah, well, likewise, actually, because there were periods in the past that I was doing daily gratitude and writing down 10 things that I'm grateful for. And even more importantly, why am I grateful for them? Because just writing down some things doesn't really trigger the feeling. It triggers the thought, but not the feeling. It doesn't evoke the feeling of gratitude. But if you write down why you're feeling grateful about what you write, that causes you to think deeper and actually feel it. And when you read it back and say thank you, I remember there were many times that I was reading back what I had just written and starting to have tears in my eyes. That means that I could really have an emotional shift into gratitude, which is very powerful.
I think that's probably the most important thing about this life, is just noticing what we have. And going back to where we started this conversation, many things are just dragging on our attention all the time. And there are many benefits to capitalism, but one of the things is that it makes us always want new stuff and wants to upgrade our stuff. And we're constantly living in this feeling of not being good enough, because and the things that we have aren't good enough, and we as people aren't good enough. So there's always someone on social media who's better, and that gratitude makes you realize that this moment is enough. This moment is actually incredible. What an amazing thing it is to be alive and to be in this moment. We don't need more than this present moment. It's okay. I think that's probably the most powerful aspect of gratitude. That you realize you are enough, you have enough, you are good enough. It just helps you step out from that drag into that social media is putting on us, making us want more and think we're not good enough.
Absolutely. You reminded me of that phrase. I think I read it in one of the Stoic books, that there are two ways to be happy. One is to have everything you want, and the other is to want everything you have.
Yeah.
Which of the two is easier or more feasible to attain?
Exactly.
It's obvious. Chris, I wanted to speak also about health, our body, since it is your area of expertise, the function of the body, and especially now in these times that people are stuck at home most of the time, and their exercise routine is to an extent disrupted. What's your advice? What do you think people should be doing in terms of movement, but also in terms of health generally? Because I know you are very knowledgeable in nutrition and all these aspects of health.
Sure. So the first thing I'll say is during my 2 weeks of head spin, where all this was kicking off, I felt zero motivation to exercise. And I'm someone that would exercise most days in varying forms. And everything went out the window at the beginning. So if that's happened to a listener, understand that that's quite normal when we're in a state of anxiety like I was a couple of weeks ago. I just lost all my energy, I lost my mojo, and I just couldn't motivate myself to train. And that shifted when I had that moment of equanimity, acceptance of this current situation. But the other thing I realized was I reframed it using Stoicism. So reframed it and realized that we all have a new job to be doing right now, and our new job is to stay healthy. Mm-hmm. Everyone, I mean, there have been many positives to this current situation. One of the positives is that we all have this sense of we're in it together, and one of the things we're all trying to achieve together is flatten the curve. We're all trying to get sick later. And by trying to get sick later, we're taking the pressure off the medical systems. We're reducing the risk of passing the virus on. So then that will be helping fewer vulnerable people catch the virus. So actually, at first I was feeling a bit of I call it victim mode, like, even though it's happening to everybody, in my first person view of the world, I was seeing the problems that would be happening to my business, to my family. Logistically, there are problems, blah, blah, blah. So I was stuck in my head of my first person view of the world and what I'm calling victim mode. But then I shifted and realized, right, I mean, I've got a job to do mode, and our job is to stay healthy. So no matter how glum I was feeling, I need to get back into healthy eating, get back onto my exercise. So the things that I've been trying to do is just exercise every day gently. As much as I love a really tough workout, the really top end workouts can lower our immunity. They can be a stress. So I've been training, but not too hard, making sure I stay mobile. One of the things that everyone has had recently is a change in their routine. So often our routine of just getting up, leaving the house, moving around can keep us loose, whereas now we're stuck at home. Sometimes our home chairs are not the best, like sofas, and we'll be sitting more on a sofa compared to an office chair, for example. That will tighten our hips, tighten our back. So I'm making sure I'm stretching every day. I'm lucky to have a garden, so and we are also lucky at the moment to have nice weather. So I'm getting out and letting sunlight hit my skin and hit my eyes. And first thing in the morning, I try and see the natural sunlight, which helps balance your daily hormones and get some vitamin D in the system. So using natural light, healthy eating, gentle but regular movement and exercise, they're the things that I'm focusing on, and realizing that is now our job. Our job is to stay healthy. And that helped me shift out of that victim mode and that lack of motivation to exercise. Now I'm realizing it's something we all need to be doing.
Okay, that's great. And in terms of nutritional advice, some things are obvious, of course, but what do you think?
The simplest way to think about food is cook fresh. And if you're cooking real food, if you're using whole ingredients, so what's the ingredients of broccoli? There's broccoli. What's the ingredients of chicken? There's chicken. So if you're using whole ingredients and turning them into a meal, you can't go too far wrong. Obviously, you can get nitpicky about how to balance macronutrients and micronutrients, and you can get a bit geeky about that. But I just say to people, if you're cooking fresh food, you're not going too far wrong. Trying to minimize processed foods with long ingredients lists. If you cut those out as much as you can, you're going to be doing pretty well. If you think of nutrition as a pyramid, first thing you should be doing, and the biggest tick off the list, is cook whole foods. From that point on, another thing I like to do that I find quite easy is called time-restricted eating. So I wouldn't necessarily be recommending this if anyone is symptomatic. So if anyone has sickness of any kind, illness of any kind, then don't worry about this. But if you're feeling healthy at the moment, something that has been shown to improve immune health is time-restricted eating, where you might try and go 16 hours, for example, with no food. So what I do is I go from dinner to lunch with no food. And during the morning, I would just have a black coffee, lots of water, and then have my first calories at lunchtime. So I get my 16-hour break, and that can help reduce inflammation in the body. It can help improve our immune function. It's also a good weight loss strategy or weight management strategy. So time restricted eating has lots of benefits. It's been linked to longevity in humans and animals. So it helps us hopefully live longer, or it increases the likelihood that we'll live a long life. That's another thing that I throw in, that anyone can do, because all you have to do is just don't eat. You don't have to think about how you're going to eat or what you're going to eat. You're not changing your diet radically. You're just choosing when to eat. So time restricted eating is another good one that's easy for anyone to do.
I like the term time restricted eating, because I'm familiar with the concept, but I always refer to it as intermittent fasting. And in a way, it's an opposite, because one is fasting, has the word fasting in it, the other has the word eating in it. So it is
a more positive.
I think from a linguistic point of view, it is a more. Maybe it sounds better if you say time restricted eating rather than intermittent fasting.
I see your point. Yeah, I like that. So it's more positive. But I've stolen that phrase from a doctor online called Dr. Peter Attia. He's got a podcast called The Drive, and there's some. They should be, anyone can listen to them, but they do have quite a strong medical focus. But he made a really good point in that intermittent fasting is actually quite an ambiguous phrase. It doesn't really tell you anything. Whereas he looks at diet as there being, you can have three strings that you can pull. You can pull time restriction string and choose when to eat. You can pull the calorie restriction string and choose how much you eat. And then you can pull the diet restriction and choose what you eat. And he finds that a much clearer way, because intermittent fasting, there are so many variables in that, as to what could be classified as intermittent, what could be classified as fasting. Sure. Whereas if you just say, this is my time restriction, and it could be 16 hours, it could be 3 days. I've done those before, 3-day fasts. All you're restricting is your time, to a greater or lesser degree, and then it's just very simple to get your head around. And then also acknowledging that that's only one of the three strings. So with my time restriction, I'm actually not pulling the calorie restriction string. So I'll have an 8-hour eating window, but I'm still going to try and get 2,000 calories in that 8-hour eating window. Some people might pull both strings. They'll reduce the time and they'll reduce the calories. And then you can think about what the diet is that you're going to eat. So for me, the diet restriction is, I don't think that much about it. I just try and cook fresh food, and eat whole foods. That's what I follow. I don't really follow a particular model. I don't follow keto or anything like that. I just eat freshly cooked food. That's my diet restriction. I don't do calorie restriction, and I do the time restriction. It's quite a simple model to follow.
Simple is good.
Exactly.
Simple is good, and the thing with all those different diets is that there is always some controversy. There are opponents of any of those diets, and it makes sense for me that our body is not designed to go into ketosis all the time, or to never to have meat all the time. That is my point of view. There is moderation, but what I consider to be one of the fundamental rules in my eating is eat alive food, or as close to being alive as possible. So obviously anything in a bag or a can is not alive. So it kind of simplifies things as close to the natural form as you can find it. And obviously the fruits and the vegetables are exactly as nature produces them. Well, hopefully anyway, I don't know. Hopefully they don't mess with them too much before they're on our plate. Shall we talk a little bit about minimalism as well? Because I remember when I spoke to you last year, I found your thoughts about it fascinating. And maybe, especially now that we spend too much time at home, maybe it's a good opportunity to maybe go through those drawers and get rid of some useless stuff.
I think one thing this isolation has taught us is, the isolation has taught it to us, but certainly the financial impact of this this whole virus is that it's making us realize we don't need that new thing. So as I mean, certainly my income has dropped instantly. There have been a few things that I'd had on my mind I was going to buy or I wanted, and now I realize, well, I don't need those. I can definitely get through life without them for now. I think that will be something that comes out of this, is that whatever we've been desiring for the last few weeks has suddenly become completely irrelevant. We don't need those new things. So hopefully that's something that this will teach us. We don't need as much stuff, and we definitely don't need it now. But in answer to your point, now that we've got all this free time, we might be able to do a big spring clean. And the best book, if anyone is interested, that I follow, because I've read a lot about minimalism and decluttering and how to get rid of stuff. I've been reading about this for years from various blogs and books. And the best book I found is Marie Kondo's book, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying. And she teaches a system on how to go about your house and how to go around your house and get rid of things in a systemized order. And that her system is definitely the best I've seen.
So there's a system to it.
So she talks about the common mistakes people make. So a common mistake people make would be to pick a drawer. So what lots of people say is they say start small. When you start, it will build, which is true. They say just pick a drawer and tidy that one drawer. But what Marie Kondo says is don't, as she says, choose category over location. So the first example is where someone's recommending to tidy a location. Pick one drawer and tidy it. The problem is, if, say, for example, that drawer had pens in it, and you tidy that drawer and you get rid of the pens that have run out and are a bit chewed and don't work anymore, but there are pens elsewhere in the house, next time you use a pen in the dining room, but you go into the kitchen, you'll put the pen back in that original drawer, and then in 6 months' time, the original drawer will be just as bad as it once was. Whereas if you say, right, I'm not going to worry about that location, but I'm going to choose today, I'm going to tidy pens. Then you go around your house and get every single pen in the house and realize that half of them don't work anymore and you don't need all of them, and you get rid of the ones that don't work. And then once you've tidied them, got rid of the things, you then choose one or maximum two locations that you're going to keep your pens. Then there's a system. So now whenever you have a pen, you know that it can only go back to one place, or one or maximum two places, and then those places remain tidy and you don't end up with pens all over the house. And you do this for everything. So she goes through an order of the categories that you should go through. So start with clothes, then next is books and DVDs and CDs, and after that it's paperwork, which is quite a chore, and you go through all of your paperwork, and that took a long time for me. And then the category number 4 is what she calls miscellaneous, which is like the man drawer on the cupboard under the stairs and the garage, and that again is a big thing. But her final one is sentimentals, and if at any point through category 1 to 4, if you find something sentimental to you and you don't really need it and you don't really want it, but it's sentimental, she says, don't worry about it yet. Put it into category number 5, the sentimentals. And what you find is by the time you get to category number 5, your relationship to things has changed, and you realize that memories and emotion isn't held in the physical thing, it's held in your mind, and you don't need the thing to remember the person that it makes you remember. So by the time you get there, your relationship to physical things has changed, and you're more able to get rid of some sentimental things. You can keep some, obviously. It's not minimalism isn't about getting rid of everything. It's just asking with intentionality, does that thing add value to my life, and do I need it? Does it detract from my life in any way? And you can just in a systemized way go through your stuff and get rid of things. And the reason I like it is that it helps your mind feel clearer. It actually has quite a strong emotional impact on your mind, and you definitely feel calmer.
I actually wanted to ask you, I was just about to ask you that, and you read my mind because I remember you said that when you started clearing out stuff, then it cleared up a space in your mind as well. So the minimalism affected your the mind space that this stuff was holding inside your mind, and I found that concept fascinating.
Yeah. So what I'm about to say is evidence based. What scientists have realized is that our brain only has the capacity to make so many decisions each day. So and everything we do chips away at our decision making powers. So if you open your wardrobe in the morning and you're deciding what to wear and you've got a ton of stuff and it's a bit higgledy-piggledy all over the place, and you're thinking what item of clothing will go with what trousers, what t-shirt goes with what trousers, what socks do you have to wear, and they're decisions you have to make. So then later in the day, if you have to make decisions that require more brain power, like a big business decision or a decision that requires willpower, like, for example, should I go to the gym or not? Or should I eat healthy food or unhealthy food? They require a little bit more willpower. So if you've used up your decision-making powers with lots of little things like, oh, where are my keys? I can't find my keys. It's in all that clutter. Or what t-shirt should I wear out of all these t-shirts in my wardrobe? And then each time you go about your day, there's like clutter and stuff that makes it difficult to find things. That's actually just using up willpower or decision power, so that when you then have to make more important decisions, you're less able to do it. So it makes your mind feel calmer, and it leaves your brain power there for things that really matter. So the example I always use is, if you close your eyes and imagine Steve Jobs, I know what you're imagining. He's wearing a black roll neck jumper and jeans, and he wore the same thing every day. And he knew that he didn't care about what he chose what he was going to wear every day, so that he never had to think about it. He knew that his brain was much better spent thinking about other things that impacted Apple. So that even the little things at home, he just tried to minimize from a decision-making perspective. And that really is the power of minimalism.
Fascinating. And actually, there was one thing that I'm going to put into practice from what you said, the paperwork. My paperwork is long overdue to be I have so many things over the last 2 years. I haven't done anything, so it's a good chance to go through them.
So in the modern day, I used Google Docs, and just so on my phone, I've now got a few folders, utilities, and car and house and things. It's amazing how little paper you actually need. Like I need very few things to keep. So I think some things related to house and life insurance actually need a physical piece of paper, but that will go into one drawer, one folder. Everything else can be screenshotted, kept in secure online folders. I use my phone, and as you're taking a picture of it on your phone, it collates it and puts it straight into a PDF, and then it's held in a secure online location. That's all you need, and then therefore it's easier to access. So if I actually do need to ring a gas company, I don't go filing through loads of papers. I go to utility on my utility app on a section in the folder on my phone, and there it is, and it's easier to locate. And I mean, don't get me wrong, it was a big chore. It took a long time, but once you're there, it's so much easier to keep up with as well. And you don't need all the stuff, and it clears your head.
It's a great tip, and hopefully, it will give people some ideas of something that is important to do, and we really put it off. I don't think anyone is ever very keen to go through their paperwork and sort it out, but it needs to be done from time to time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Chris, I would like to ask you some quick fire questions as well.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Awesome. What does personal development mean to you?
I would say, I would use the quote that we used earlier: never compare yourself to others, but only ever compare yourself to who you were yesterday. And personal development is the never-ending project of paying attention to your life and trying to get a little bit better at things that matter to you. So first of all, you have to know what matters to you. So that's
Mm-hmm.
work. That's work in itself. You have to know what your values are and know what you want to improve in your life. And that then can actually be really broad. So when I'm quite into photography. I like looking at photographs, but I like making photographs. So for me, personal development is actually learning how to be a better photographer. It's learning how to be better at my job and be better as an osteopath. I'm a parent, so it's learning how to be a better dad and learning how to take control of my own mind and meditate and learn Stoicism, practice Stoicism. So health and diet, all these things matter to me. And there are lots and lots of little facets to this wheel, and just trying to slowly chip away at them and improve and ask questions and get better each day and not beat myself up when I make mistakes, because we all do.
Thank you. That's great. If you could go back in time and meet your 20-year-old self, what's the one piece of advice you would give him?
If it was one piece of advice,
you can share more if you want, but
there would be two. So
okay.
two pieces of advice. First piece of advice: start investing. So I only learned about investing when I was 29, and there's a phrase in investing that the best time to invest was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. So I learned about it when I was 29, but it probably took me another year or so to actually implement. So I was 30 when I started investing for long-term financial future, and I wish I'd started that when I was 20. So start investing would be my biggest piece of advice to a 20-year-old. That will definitely pay you back when you're 30 and 40 and beyond. But the other piece of advice I'd say is just chill out, relax. No one cares. So my 20-year-old self was I was quite in my own head, and I thought things really mattered, and I would just say, calm down, just focus on the present moment. Don't worry about what other people think. Chill out. You'll get there. And that would be my advice to myself. I beat myself up quite a lot in my own head, and none of it was necessary. I was just adding more stress to myself that didn't actually impact anything. I was suffering. I wasn't experiencing the present moment. I was suffering the possibilities of the future. So that would be my advice. Just chill out. You'll get there.
That's great, and I can certainly relate to that. Or my 20-year-old self can certainly relate to that. Chris, if you had a magic wand and you could wave it and change something in the world as it is today, what would you change?
There aren't anything. There's only one thing that I think would benefit everybody, and that's meditating. So we were chatting earlier about diets, and the reason there's controversy around all diets is that there isn't one type of eating that would help everybody. But I do think if everyone was taught from a young age how to pay attention to thoughts and feelings, that would certainly take away some of the anger in the world. And just as an example, my clinic is on quite a busy roundabout, and all day long I hear beeping of horns where someone might be in slightly the wrong lane and drive in slightly the wrong speed, and someone will beep, and then you hear these two cars driving down the road, beep, 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 just beeping at each other down the road. And it just makes me think like how angry people are and how quick they are to beat their horn. It's partly because they're not able in that moment to notice that instant reaction of anger and fear, and so they react in a way that probably isn't true to themselves. If you ask that person that's beeping all the way down the road, if you ask them 30 minutes later, was that necessary? Are you proud of yourself for how you acted in that moment? 99% of them are going to say, actually, no, I probably didn't need to go down the road, sticking my finger up at someone and shouting at them from my car. They just weren't present. They weren't able to catch their emotions. And I think if we were taught from a young age to notice our emotions, notice our thoughts and feelings, that probably is something that would genuinely help everybody and help the world to be a bit calmer and less angry. And who knows what that would lead to.
Maybe world peace. Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, I can't say it would, but it would be interesting to see.
Certainly. Chris, is there any major aha moment you've had the last year or so that you wanted to share with us?
The breaking down the illusion of the self was my aha moment in meditation. That happens this year. I think another thing that's happened this year is taking the pressure off myself and having more equanimity, just in that this present moment is enough. The things that I'm trying in life, in business, they might work, they might not.
Mm-hmm.
But if they are true to my values, then it almost doesn't matter. I just need to try them anyway, keep working, put in work, but I'm no longer attached to the outcome. That's probably the aha moment. All we are in control of are our thoughts and our actions. So if we think something is good to be doing, and we're in, and something fits our values and our purpose, then we just need to put in the work, take the right actions. But the outcome of it, the success of anything we're trying, is actually just not in our control. So I've let go of that, the pressure that I put on myself, and interestingly, that's actually changed the way I run my business a little bit. I've stopped tracking certain KPIs. I've found them. I just can't find myself to be motivated by any of those anymore. I used to make goals and want to hit goals, but the goals were always external. Now the goals I create are more action based. So it's what daily actions do I need to be taking, or what weekly actions do I need to be taking? I track those. But how successful something is from a financial perspective, or how many views I get for a particular video or piece of marketing that I do, it's just not in my control there. It's that's up to other people whether they like it or not. And so I've let go of that. So that's probably there have been a few I've just been mentioning there. Equanimity of the present moment, paying attention to the state of consciousness in my meditation. That's just been interesting. And then letting go of the outcome on any particular project, but making sure I'm taking the right actions. They're all developments I've had this year.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Thank you very much for that. And in a similar question to the previous one, is there any big mistake or failure, and I'm using the quotation marks, or lesson that you had that you wanted to share with us and maybe help us to avoid doing the same one?
This year, or recently, I think I'm not. I wish I was someone that journaled every day. I'm not. I normally journal when things are either really good or really bad. So I'm like the people who leave reviews on TripAdvisor. They're either really good or really bad. But I don't. I wish I journaled every day.
Okay.
But one of the things I notice and wish I didn't do is snap at my kids, and it always comes down to when I'm tired or when I'm stressed. And so the thing that I'm trying to get better at, but is really tough to do, and any parent of young children will know it's really tough to do, is I'm just trying to catch my emotions earlier, catch my fatigue earlier, and not snap. Young kids are beautiful and fun, but they can be stressful at times as well, and that's the thing. So I hope I'm not painting a picture. I'm not like this all the time, but I'm like it sometimes, where I just don't catch my emotions quick enough, and that's something that I'm trying to get better at. So that's probably the thing that any parent of young children can definitely relate to, and I'd be open to advice on how to always stay true to yourself. And sometimes when they're whinging, I'm very patient and calm, and sometimes when they're whinging, I'm not. So I'm trying to be more of the patient and calm dad, and not the snappy, impatient dad. But that again is an ongoing project.
Sure. knowing you for the few times that we've met in person and interacted, and seeing this calmness that you radiate, I really can't imagine you snapping at anyone. So I'm just sharing my thoughts here, but it's
two-year-olds have a way of bringing it out, and you trust me. So, it happens. Hopefully not too often, but that's what I'm working on. That's my project.
Chris, is there anything you were hoping that I would ask you and I completely missed it?
I think we covered things. It's a strange time out there, so we covered things that I hope. Certainly, I got to share my story over the last few weeks. I found this time in the last few weeks around this coronavirus. I found it tough. I think I've got on top of it in my mind now. I think hopefully we've shared some things that people found interesting and will be helpful for them.
I hope so as well. How can people connect with you, Chris?
So the best way is actually to go to my business Facebook page, which is Forte, Forte, Physical Health. One of my other projects that I've been working on recently is trying to limit my social media to in a way that adds value to my life and doesn't detract from it. So I'm actually using my personal profile a bit less now. So I've the best way to get in touch would be through Facebook, typing in Forte Physical Health and finding us there. And there I post videos about lifestyle advice and exercise and movement advice, but I'm also able to get in touch with people through messaging there.
That's great. Just on a side note, do you run that blog that you were telling me last year that you wanted to revive?
I started writing the blog, and then that has stopped. So it is there, so people can find that at chrisbranch.me. It's still live, but it hasn't been updated for a few months. One of the things I'm actually going to use this isolation for is to build an online course to help people with back pain. So that's something I've had in the back of my mind for a long time. So this is this time that's opened up is going to help me build that online course now.
There we will find more and more things going on online now. I mean, it's inevitable. It's inevitable. Chris, I want to thank you very much for your time today, for sharing your wisdom with us. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I was keen to have a sequel to our discussion. And I think I told you right back in January 2019 when we discussed that I would love to carry on. So now I'm delighted that we had the opportunity to speak. Thank you very much. I wish you all the very best with yourself, with your family, and with your business and everything that's going to happen. And it's a real pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And well done on your project, on your podcast. Well done for keeping it going. And it's always a pleasure to chat to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for listening. Please take a moment to subscribe, rate and review Personal Development Mastery on Apple Podcasts. If you want to know more about me and how I can help you, join my Facebook group Personal Development Mastery. You can either search for it on Facebook or you can simply type bit.ly/PDM group. And until next time, stand out, don't fit in.